Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another episode of On the Radar, presented by Pakistan Geostrategic Review in association with the Islamabad-based Centre for Strategic and Contemporary Research, CSCR. This is Zaki Khalid,
And this is Talib Brahim.
and today we have a special guest with us. He is a young analyst working for a prominent think tank in Islamabad. Mohammad Taimur Khan is a research associate at the Institute of Strategic Studies, Islamabad, the ISSI. He is an alumnus of the National Defense University, Islamabad, and has been affiliated with this institute since 2016. His research focuses on Russia and its neighborhood security and foreign policy. Recently, Temur wrote a very thought-provoking article for CSCR examining the Karsa sanctions that were imposed on Turkey's procurement of S-400 missile defense systems from Russia. And Temur presented a South Asian, but particularly a Pakistani perspective on how these sanctions and this US outburst against Turkey could impact Pakistan's own defense and national security interests. So without further ado, here's welcoming Temur to the program. Assalamu alaikum, Temur.
Walaikum assalam, and thank you for having me.
We hope you're doing fine, Temur. So,
Alhamdulillah.
before we proceed with the formal questions, can you please let us know that what prompted a very brief overview of what prompted you to write on this particular topic?
As you mentioned in my introduction, that I've been working on Russia and its neighborhood. So when US imposed Karsa restrictions on Turkey regarding the procurement of the S-400 air defense systems from Russia, I came across this interview by one of our former military generals, who said that these sanctions have far-reaching consequences for other countries, particularly the South Asian countries. So I talked to some of my friends who are serving in the military, and I asked them that if these sanctions have any implications for Pakistan. And I found out that yes, those sanctions, they do have serious implications for our defense projects that we have been undertaking with Turkey. So that is why I decided to come up with this article.
Interesting. And I think I'll begin with a first question which I've been meaning to ask you. And this particularly concerns the actual procurement of S-400 itself. Russian made S-300 systems. The S-300 was a predecessor to S-400 and it came out in the 70s. So the S-300 systems are already being used by several NATO member countries such as Bulgaria, Greece and Slovakia. Moreover, in November 2020, very recently, just a few months ago, Greece, which is known as a geopolitical competitor of Turkey in the Mediterranean, it tested S-300 systems during drills at Crete. And interestingly enough, the US, Germany, and Netherlands also participated in those drills. And they sent a very wrong message to Turkey in the Eastern Mediterranean that there was perhaps some US tacit support for Greece. Ironically, though, the same S-300 systems are Russian made, but apparently there was no problem with Greece exercising with them. So in this context, what in your view could be the rationale for Washington's extraordinary outburst against Ankara alone? How would you explain that?
Zaki bhai, in my opinion, I think such seriousness from the US side, especially with regards to Turkey, is because the S-400 system is way more advanced as compared to the previous model of S-300 system that have been tested by Greece already. The main point of contention that have been raised by the United States of America is that the S-400 system does not go with the military architecture of NATO. Although Turkey has made it clear that it will never make it a part of the NATO military structure, but still, it does make the US very uncomfortable that Turkey is in possession of such state-of-the-art military equipment. Plus, the Americans also say that their latest stealth fighter, F-35, is also extremely vulnerable against the defenses that are being offered by the S-400 system. So these two reasons, I think, that prompted such a strong response from the Americans when the Turkish acquired the S-400 systems from Russia.
But just let me ask a quick add-on to this question which I just asked you. I agree with you, and you are correct in mentioning that the S400 is way more advanced and it has capabilities which are not present in the S300. But at the gist of it is the fact that both are Russian origin, and again, it gives that sort of that sends out a message that the problem isn't with the platform being Russian origin and being interoperable with the Russian forces that might be in the area. But the issue is that there is some sort of a doubt on Turkey's own military posture, which perhaps they fear it could be used against the US one day. Is that what you believe could be at the core?
Definitely, Zaki bhai, because there are multiple factors that has uh, added to such a strong response from the US. First, there was a Syrian point because there have been convergence of interest between Turkey and Russia as of late, which has
Indeed.
made US extremely uncomfortable when it comes to Syria. Uh, Apart from that, the things that unfolded during the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, Russia and Turkey, they, along with several other countries, they banded together and they made sure that Azerbaijan came out as a victor. So even though United States was a part of that Minsk group, but still Russia and Turkey came out to be the stronger parties and overtook the entire issue that unfolded during in the South Caucasus. So yes, there are multiple political, strategic, and tactical factors that do add up to America's strong response against Turkey's acquisition of S-400 systems from Russia.
Since you have mentioned in your piece about how India will be given a waiver from the US authorities uh, with regards to the CARSA section, CARSA sanctions. So, do you really think that from a technical point of view, the legal point of view, the existing waiver eligibility under CARSA is wide enough to be applicable on India?
Uh, Mr. Tala, I don't think so that US cares about the technicality or other such moralistic factors, if I may, when it comes to its economic and strategic interests. US has, been making several concessions with regards to India in the past, and I don't think so that over such a small acquisition of weapons, which does not directly threaten the US strategic or military or any sort of other interests, even in the region or extra regionally. So I don't think so that US will have any problems in handing over a waiver to India as far as the acquisition of S-400 system is concerned. Plus, as I mentioned in my article, that India plans on spending more than $130 billion on its military modernization in the next few years. And it has, as per the Indian defense minister, they plan on giving majority of that $130 billion business to US private companies. So there are serious economic interests that are going in favor of the United States of America. So due to which I think that yes, there is a big probability that India might get a waiver in this regard.
But that perspective, that perspective of this military relevant procurements that India may do from the US, that is one significant aspect, and I do get it. But do you think that the sections pertaining to specifically pertaining to Section 231 and Section 235 that have been debated on with regards to the waiver that can be given by the US president. Do you think that India somehow falls under the legalities that have been mentioned under 231 and
Well,
235?
I think if America really wants to give us waiver, sanction waiver to India, they will always come up with some sort of a legal mechanism to make that work. especially now that India is part of the larger US strategy of China containment in the Indo-Pacific or Asia Pacific, if I may. Uh, I think that the US just cannot afford to, antagonize or lose India over such a small procurement of $5 billion. I don't think so that it can be a big problem for the United States in coming up with a legal mechanism or a loophole in those sanction regimes to help India out.
So, my next question for you, Temur, is that in your article, you very rightly mentioned that as far as Pakistan is concerned, there should be greater reliance on indigenous defense technology production and obviously the procurement of US manufactured engines for T-129 attack helicopters made by Turkey and ADA class corvettes for the Pakistan Navy, which also have US engines. So both of these could be impacted, and in the short term, you've recommended that there should be a search for alternate vendors. So here's a counter question to this particular suggestion. So, keeping the Afghan peace process in perspective, do you think that Pakistan could perhaps use some sort of a political leverage to gain concessions from the US for its ongoing projects in Turkey?
Uh, Zaki bhai, of course we can, because whether we like to accept it or acknowledge it or not, Pakistan has been doing this in the past as well. We have been getting military aid and military equipment, and we have been getting concessions, by exchanging uh, favors because of the contemporary political situation at that time. Say in the 50s, then again in the 70s, then again during the 80s, and now again. I think we can definitely leverage our political contemporary situation in the region and get some extra favors from the United States of America to give us some breathing space and Turkey some breathing space so that we can continue in this defense sector cooperation with each other. So, yes, our policymakers and our decision makers, especially our diplomats, they need to work to this end in order to creating a favorable environment where Pakistan can properly leverage the current political situation in the region and getting some favors from the Americans, especially vis-a-vis our defense projects with Turkey.
So, just to ask you, if we subtract that whole Afghan conundrum going on, would there be any other possibility for Pakistan to try and lobby for an exception with the US, or this could be the only incident that would come to mind at all?
Uh, Zaki bhai, if I be honest, I think that there are only two things that really makes Pakistan relevant for the United States of America. One, Afghanistan, and two, the issue of extremism and terrorism. So we Pakistan is already, facing the music as far as the issue of radicalization and extremism is concerned. And the only thing that is keeping us extremely relevant with the United States of America is the Afghan peace process. So
Indeed.
if we remove these two things, and the third one, if one can really, stretch the boundaries for that point, then it can be our alignment with the Chinese. So if we remove these two main factors of extremism and terrorism plus the Afghan peace process, I don't think so. There's much that Pakistan can, dig into so that it can make itself more relevant and more, you know, adjustable with the United States interests in the region.
Such a harsh reality check, given that we have been cut off from the climate summit that is happening.
Indeed, I was just going to mention that. So that just lets you know that if you are not even considered in the climate aspect, then I think my point in asking Temur was that would it be a long shot? And I think he has explained it quite interestingly. And so,
Yes, sir. Now,
Temur, and do you have something to add on this?
yes, because this morning I was extremely disappointed that Pakistani leadership and our policymakers, especially our foreign minister, we have really been stressing on the point that Pakistan does want to change the topics of conversation with the entire world, especially the United States of America. And climate was one of the major points that our prime minister was especially spearheading so that we can start on a positive note with the world in order to engage with them.
Indubitably.
Exactly. And I was surprised to see several countries that are, that were not supposed to be in that list in the first place, but I found them there this morning, and Pakistan was not. So it was extremely disappointing, but let's see how this turns out.
Indeed. And before we conclude, I'd like to inform the audience that in case some of you have not come across Taimur's article, you can find the link to it on CRCR's website in the YouTube description of this particular video, or you can also visit the CRCR website to see Taimur's article. It makes for a very interesting reading. Taimur, thank you very much for your time, and we wish you the best, and we look forward to having you in future episodes as well.
Thank you,
Taimur.
Zaki Bhai, and thank you, Tala Bhai, for having me. And inshallah, definitely looking forward to it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.